Hey up people, how you doing? Welcome back, or hello, it's your first time here. I'm glad you could join me. I'm Wayne. Right, climate in the US, why is it like that? Geography King. I did see this in the comments to react to, so I thank you very much, people in the comments. I appreciate you all. Yeah, America's a massive place, USA is a huge place, isn't it? So, loads of different types of weather from, I think of hot places like, I don't know, is it Florida and Las Vegas, Nevada, or whatever. Then cold up north. New York tends to be like our weather that I feel's here. A milder climate. It gets pretty warm, but also pretty cold. But I don't know. We're gonna find out why it's so different here. Apart from the scale and size of the place, I don't know any. Obviously, these atmospherical and watery things that affect weather, of course, because that's where it all comes from. But yeah, we have my point is we have a Gulf Stream here that keeps us defrosted, because we should be a little bit colder than what we are apparently, where we are geographically on the globe. Geographically on the globe, we should be colder, but we stay defrosted because of the Gulf Stream. So yeah, I'm guessing that you have like warm currents coming from one way, cold currents coming from another, and same with the wind. So yeah, I've kind of got a bit of a gist where weather comes from. It comes from water and wind. It's the only thing I can think of. Right, anyway, that was a load of nonsense, I know it was. I'll give it a subscribe and I'll give it a like. I'm going to try and learn why your climate is the way it is. See, I'm just talking about weather. Is weather and climate the same thing? It is, isn't it? It is, isn't it?
Howdy, it's Kyle talking about the climate of the contiguous U.S. And with a landmass the size of the U.S.
The contiguous?
Howdy, it's Kyle talking about the climate of the contiguous U.S. And with a landmass the size of the
Contiguous? Oh, right. Never heard of this term before. Contiguous meaning touching, bordering, or sharing a common boundary, after referring to things in unbroken sequence or adjacent locations. So I'm guessing this is what I meant. I like Google.
U.S., you can of course expect a lot of different types of climate throughout the country. And in this video, I'm going to talk about why different regions get different types of climate. So why you have different types of precipitation and temperatures and weather hazards in this part of the country, but not the next. I believe the climate is the most important aspect of where you live. It affects every aspect of your life. What you can
I'm not going to, I'll try not to stop it too much, but valleys and stuff, that affects climates and that as well. That's what I just remembered.
be able to do that day, what you're wearing that day. Of course, you go out and talk to somebody randomly on the street, the first thing you're going to talk about is the weather, because it's just so important. So in this video, I'm going to answer the question, why is the climate like that? The two most important
Do you guys talk about the weather? I thought that was just us. Icebreaker. Weather's a bit short, innit?
Geographic aspects that affect the climate of the U.S. are the ocean currents and the north-south orientation of the mountain ranges of North America. And the combination of these two aspects are what leads to the vast array of different climate types throughout the country. In the northern hemisphere, the ocean currents move in a clockwise.
I'll go back and let me start speaking again in a minute. Let's have a look at this. The map looks crazy like this. Yeah, so you got hot currents, cold currents. Yeah. It is. It's a weird thing to say. I can't explain myself very well, but it's obviously atmosphere and water in it that, and the sun.
Direction. So that's why along the east coast or the Gulf Coast you have very warm water, because it's being brought up from the tropical areas, as opposed to the west coast where the northern hemisphere, the ocean currents move in the mountain ranges of North America. And the combination of these two aspects are what leads to the vast array of different climate types throughout the country. In the northern hemisphere, the ocean currents move in a clockwise direction, so that's why along the east coast or the Gulf Coast you have very warm water, because it's being brought up from the tropical areas, as opposed to the west coast where the water is significantly colder because it's being brought down from Alaska. So you can be as far south as San Diego and the ocean temperatures are going to be in the 60s, and up around San Francisco the ocean temperatures are going to be in the 50s. So that's pretty chilly. Compare that to say the Carolinas where the ocean temperature is going to be in the 70s, and Florida and South Texas, where the ocean temperature is going to be in the 80s. So it's going to be a lot warmer on the East Coast and the Gulf Coast, and you can go as far north as
I want to get a chart also that I can print out and have it on my wall. I know I've got Google, I can Google it all the time, but if I have a print out of the exchange rate or whatever it's called, conversion.
New York and New Jersey,
So I want to
and the
learn
ocean
it.
temperatures are still pretty pleasant. I'm going to begin discussing the different climates in the U.S. by starting from the west and moving east, because in the mid-latitudes here in North America, we're in a westerly wind belt, so that's the way that the weather generally moves. The coastal areas of southern and central California are generally considered to have the best climate in the world. Well, why is that? Why is the weather so much nicer in California than other places?
I knew California was supposed to be. It's one of the hot spots for holidaying, isn't it, Cali?
Places. Well, in the westerly wind belt, all of the weather affecting California is coming directly from the Pacific Ocean. And with that water being so cold, during the summertime, it really has a moderating effect on the land. So it doesn't really get that terribly hot because you just have this cold ocean breeze always affecting the land, which keeps it much more moderate. In the wintertime, it's the exact opposite. So with the ocean temperature being warmer than the land, it also helps to moderate the temperature during the wintertime. But of course, during the winter, the difference in sea surface and land temperature is...
That's something I couldn't handle. A warm Christmas, a hot Christmas. Like, imagine Australia, the southern hemisphere, and having your Christmas in the middle of the summer. To me, that's mental. We don't have snow anymore. I swear there used to be snow at Christmas when I was a kid. There isn't anymore. And no, I don't think it's climate change. It's just the way the world goes, isn't it? Yeah, no. That definitely dark and cold Christmases
is great. And how this affects precipitation is that during the summertime, you're really not going to get any along the west coast. Even as far north as Seattle, you really get no rain during the summertime. It's gorgeous. And we all know Seattle is a place that's gray and rainy all winter long, but in the summertime, it's gorgeous. So the only rain you're really going to get along the west...
Is that the Space Needle? Is that what they call it? Is that the thing that was always in Frasier?
West coast is going to be from the winter to the spring. And of course, if you're farther north, the rain will start earlier, maybe the late fall, and last longer, maybe to the mid-spring. But you're going to have very nice summers no matter where you go. But of course, the farther north you go, the more rain you're going to get during the winter. So the coastal areas of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California are going to have a lot more rain because you have colder air masses. And a colder air mass is able to hold less moisture.
See, that to me alone is crazy. Don't matter where we are in the UK. Right, it vastly changes from in London to right tip of Scotland. It's warmer and much colder, but really it ain't nowhere near as vast. Well, because we're much smaller, obviously, but just one state, it's warmer and drier in one part, but up north, it's a bit grimmer, and that's what they say here. It's a bit grim up north.
So this can't hold on as long before it has to rain. The farther south you go, the warmer the air masses are, it can hold a little more moisture, so it takes a little bit more before it starts to rain. So you can often get almost no rain at all along the Southern California coast. Along the west coast, it doesn't take very long for an air mass to move inland before it becomes affected by the mountain ranges. So it comes in and immediately hits the coastal ranges. And as it does, it has to rise. And as it rises, it cools, it condenses, and colder air can hold less moisture. So it just dumps all that rain or snow along the western slopes or the windward side of the mountains. That's why on the windward sides, you're going to have a lot of greenery and trees. And of course, you have the biggest and tallest trees in the world in California.
I was just about to say, is this AI or real footage? Them trees look like beasts, man. Like in some sort of crazy movie.
Those are on the windward side of the Sierra Nevada.
What he said, though.
Of the mountains. That's why on the windward sides, you're going to have a lot of greenery and trees. And of course, you have the biggest and tallest trees in the world in California. Those are on the windward side of the Sierra Nevada. But once you get to the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada or the Cascades is where things change a lot because the atmosphere dumped all that moisture on the west side. There's none of it left for the east side. Once you get to the eastern slopes of the Cascades and the Sierra Nevada is where you start to get into deserts. There's very little vegetation.
I think this is about the only thing I remember from primary school.
Vegetation at all. And what you do have is usually xerophytic, kind of like cacti. It just doesn't need very much water at all. Has very deep roots to get to the very limited water there is. And you also have very extreme temperature ranges. So you don't have the the coastal air masses affecting these areas east of the mountains. So you have very, very hot summers and very cold winters. East of the Rockies is where things really start to change because once you get into the Great Plains, you no longer have any mountain ranges.
See, I didn't know that. Obviously, the red's meaning hot here, isn't it? That's mad how you got this, like, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen. I think you can. Uh, it's like a little red line here, and this is all scorching here. But yeah, I didn't realise that west to east. That answers my question from earlier.
That are there to stop and affect any of the air masses. So you have and very cold winters. East of the Rockies is where things really start to change, because once you get into the Great Plains, you no longer have any mountain ranges that are there to stop and affect any of the air masses. So you have different air masses from different parts of the continent.
I can't unsee it now. I can see it. Why does the map of America look like a buffalo to me? At least here, a big old head and tiny little legs. Sorry, I'm never going to unsee that from this now.
That are colliding. The western part of the Great Plains are very dry. You have, short grass prairie. There isn't much precipitation there, and as you generally move east, you get more and more precipitation. It gets more and more green. You have the tall grass prairie in the eastern part of the Great Plains, and this gets more and more green as you head east. And the reason for that is that you have a lot of the warmer air masses from the Gulf of Mexico that are able to come up into the middle part of the country. And again, there's no mountain range there to stop it, so it brings in that warm, moist air from the Gulf. And
it's got to be the same Gulf Stream we get, Auntie. It's got to be. But yeah, it gets around a bit.
This creates more humid temperatures, a little bit more moisture, a little more precipitation, and more greenery. But having no mountain ranges there also allows the really cold, dry air masses from Canada and the polar areas to come into the middle part of the country as well. So what happens is you have these really cold, dry air masses from the north mixing with these warm, moist air masses from the Gulf of Mexico, and they collide right in the middle of the country. And when these two collide, if the differences in temperature are great, you can get a really strong storm. And so the greater the temperature difference, the greater the pressure differences between the two, the stronger the storm's going to be. And of course, in the Great Plains, this is where you get giant thunderstorms. And you got these, these giant air masses that collide.
Serious note. House insurance, home insurance there. Well, does it exist? Is it hard to get? Is it special companies? I don't know, but seems like a mental play. When you do think of tornadoes, I don't think anybody, I definitely don't think of anywhere else other than Tornado Alley. Tornado Alley in America.
Got these really warm ones mixing with these really cold ones, makes the air very unstable, makes it really exciting from an atmospheric standpoint, but can create pretty severe storms, including tornadoes. Back in 2011, there was a huge tornado outbreak in the southeast, and there was a tornado that hit just a few miles from our house, and it was a small tornado, if you can really even use that term. It was an EF0.
And I'll keep stopping a lot, but I'll forget what I'll say if I say it at the end. But I kind of saw a tornado when I was a kid. It was about 1.5 feet tall, a few leaves in a crisp packet spinning around like that. Yeah, I didn't even know that we had tornado. It wasn't just a bit of wind, I know it was. That's what a tornado is, isn't it? I found out that we have a lot of tornadoes here. I didn't think we did, but they're just that weak. We don't even notice them.
But, I'm standing on the back porch, and it was kind of cold and dry. And then a couple minutes later, it was warm and moist, and then back to cold and dry. It was just going back and forth, and I was like, "Oh man, this isn't good. This is gonna be bad." It's kind of like drink a lot of beer, drink a lot of liquor, everything gets in your stomach. It's real like that, and at some point, you're gonna just have to throw up. And that's kind of what a tornado is. The atmosphere becomes so unstable. These two air masses colliding. A tornado is basically the atmosphere throwing out. And the U.S. is by far the number one spot in the world for tornadoes. There's nowhere else on Earth that comes anywhere near as close as we have.
That just answered the question that I had there. I didn't ask the question out, but it was here in my head. That is America the most tornado. Hey, here we go. Look, it was some on the UK. Never seen this map before. But yeah, we have. There's a lot of places that don't get them at all. Africa and Asia barely get them. Wow. You really drew the short straw on the tornado lottery. No way.
To the number of tornadoes that we get. And again, it's because of the mountain ranges. You look at the other major mountain ranges in the northern hemisphere. The Alps are east-west oriented. The Himalayas are east-west oriented. The Pamirs, all these major mountain ranges are east-west. So what that does is it keeps the colder air masses from the polar areas from mixing with the warmer air masses in the tropical areas. And if we don't have this mix, you don't have the instability of the air. You don't have as much throwing up to create tornadoes. So you can get tornadoes in other parts of the world, but the vast majority of them are going to be here in the U.S. Just this century, what's considered Tornado Alley has changed a little bit. It used to be almost exclusively the Great Plains, as far north as the Dakotas or
That's
Nebraska,
mental.
but it's shifted a little more south and east to where Mississippi and Alabama are just as bad as Oklahoma and Texas in terms of tornadoes. And it can be more of a risk in the southeast actually because a lot less people have basements for protection, and a lot more folks live in mobile homes. So in the Midwest, people are more used to these big tornadoes, and they have more likely to have a basement and are less likely to live in a mobile home. So the risk isn't quite as there. So it's been pretty bad in Mississippi and Alabama in recent years, and it's only going to probably get worse. But it isn't all bad. With all of the moisture and the humidity you get in the east, you have a lot more precipitation, you have a lot more greenery. So you get to places like Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, they're just gorgeous. They're green wherever you go. So you just have a lot more rain that can
Lush.
cause a lot more vegetation to grow. And once you get to the Gulf Coast or the Southeast, you have that really high humidity to go along with the very high temperatures, which makes summers almost unbearable at times. But you can't always use the measurement relative humidity to determine just how uncomfortable it's going to be during the summertime because technically San Francisco is one of the most humid cities in the country, but because it's usually in the 50s and
Boiled
60s, there, you
alive.
don't notice it as much as opposed to, say, New Orleans, which might not actually be as humid as San Francisco, but it'll sure feel like it is. Dew point is a much more accurate measurement of how uncomfortable it is or in terms of the heat index. Relative humidity is literally the difference between the temperature and the dew point. So if they're very
Isn't it mad how the weather works like that? Temperatures might be different in different places, literally on the thermometer, but it feels so much warmer in one place than another purely because of the moisture in the air and that. Crazy. It dry. It's a little bit more bearable than being boiled alive, I think. It's like that frog, innit? You feel like it's
close to each
too
other,
late
it's
until
very
you
humid.
cooked.
So again, San Francisco might be 60 degrees, the dew point might be 50. That's very, very humid because they're very close to each other, as opposed to, say, the southeast, where it might be 90 degrees with a dew point of 70. So the spread is much larger, but it's going to feel much more uncomfortable because the dew point is a lot higher. Or you could have somewhere like Las Vegas where the temperature
Summer in Vegas is easy. It's like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire and you're on fire and everything on fire and you're in hell.
might be 115 with a dew point of
Might be a bit
10 or
much for
some
me
kind of
then.
ridiculous spread like that, which is a really good indication that it's very dry. And when I was in college, I had a meteorology professor. I asked him, what's your favorite weather? He's like, I don't really care what the temperature is as long as the dew point is 50. But of course, that warm water off the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico is why you can get hurricanes during the summer or fall. And the entire Southeast faces a significant hurricane risk every single year. Hurricanes need very warm water to be fed. That's what keeps them going.
I'm in an hour and about whether I'm going to ask this. Hurricane, tornado. What is the difference? Is it? I don't know. Is hurricane on water? I don't know. I wouldn't know the answer if I don't ask. So yeah, you guys over there probably gonna know because you have to deal with a couple of them now and again, don't you? So it's not an interchangeable word, is it? They are both different things, I believe.
So the warmer the water is going to be the stronger the storm, and so that's why you don't really get any hurricane.
Do you know what? I'm sorry. I'm gonna Google it. It's in my head. I know I've paused a lot, but I'm trying to learn. What am I writing? Hurricanes. If I can spell it. Hurricane and tornado. Oh God! Don't put cyclone in there too. I'm not even gonna bother with that. Low winds are sometimes able to cause tornado. Oh, hurricanes are 1,000 times. Okay, fair enough. Pardon me. Well, figured that out. I'm not even going to bother going into the cyclones. It's a person with one eye in it, a cyclone.
Hurricanes off the west coast because the water is just too cold. And the reason why you get so many hurricanes in the summer and fall is because, again, with the specific heat of water being so much higher, it takes longer for the ocean water to warm up. So the ocean water is still very, very warm by October. So you do have a significant hurricane threat in October, even though it's very, very small in May or really even June. And of course, the farther north you go, the colder it's going to get, and the higher the chance of precipitation is going to be snow. But not everywhere in the north has the same type of cold temperatures or the same amount of snow. Winters in the northern Great Plains are going to be colder than the winters of New England, even though they're at the same latitude. And the reason is, again, because of these cold polar air masses. So what happens is these cold air masses are coming straight down from Canada, going right into the Midwest, and just causes it to be super, super cold during the winter, very high winds, even though you don't really get that much snow. The Northeast is affected more by the ocean temperature, so the oceans are very cold in the wintertime in the Northeast, but it is still more of a moderating influence. So you don't have it quite as cold in Maine or Massachusetts as it does in, say, Minnesota or North Dakota, but obviously it's still very cold. But you do get more snow in the Northeast and the Midwest. You could be as far north as eastern Montana or North Dakota, and you won't have that much snow. There might be a light dusting while it's minus 25 degrees, as opposed to, say, Boston, where you might have a foot of snow, even though it's a toasty 12 degrees. And then you have lake effect snow, which is literally...
Weirdly, opposed to Alaska and stuff like that, I do think of Boston and places like that as snowy.
Really how it sounds is snow that's affected by the giant lakes. What happens during the wintertime is, the air is moving from west to east and it's going across these giant lakes. And during the wintertime, even though the water is very cold, it's still warmer than the land. So it's relatively warm air masses carrying a lot of moisture. And it says hauling going across these lakes. There's no friction at all, nothing slowing them down. And all of a sudden, hits the land. The land is much colder. Colder air can hold less moisture, so it has nowhere to go. It's now got friction, has to stop. It can't hold any more moisture and just dumps a ton of snow. So the eastern side of some of these Great Lakes, where you can get tremendous amounts of snow, especially in upstate New York, like Buffalo or Rochester or Syracuse, it's just ridiculous amount of snow. And when I was in college, I had a roommate that was from Rochester, and he would tell me these stories about the snow, and I was like, oh, it doesn't snow 6 to 8 feet. I mean, come on. No, it snows 6 to 8 feet sometimes. So I mean, that's incredible snow, but you can be on the western side of the Great Lakes and it's going to be cold and snowy. But
the area that we live in now, we moved to in 1996, and that winter here was literally about that sort of height, 6 feet, 6 foot plus, but it hasn't been like that since.
Oh, 6 to 8 feet. I mean, come on. No, it snows 6 to 8 feet sometimes. So I mean, that's incredible snow, but you can be on the western side of the Great Lakes and it's going to be cold and snowy, but nowhere near as much snow as you're going to get on the eastern side of the Great Lakes. And you might be wondering why you get so much more snow in upstate New York, even though Lake Erie and Ontario are a lot smaller than Lake Michigan. Why don't you have as much lake effect snow on the eastern shores of Lake Michigan? Well, Michigan's a north-south oriented lake. It's not that terribly wide east-west, whereas Erie and Ontario are east-west oriented lakes. So there's much more distance for the air masses to cross, more time for it to pick up speed, pick up more moisture, and which just gives it more moisture, more snow to dump on the eastern shores of Lake Erie and Ontario. But the summers in the Midwest are going to be nicer than the summers in the Northeast because, again, with it being less moisture, it's less humid, and just more pleasant during the summer. You can be as far northeast as New York City, and it might as well be Georgia in August because it's just so hot and humid. So you have a little bit less pleasant summers in the north.
See, that was something I was jealous of watching American movies as a kid. The fact your fire hydrants stick out the ground, as are under manholes, drain covers or whatever. Used to look fun watching that on the American movies.
Northeast as opposed to the Midwest, you have a lot more snow. It's not quite as cold. The upper Midwest gets way colder and way windier, not quite as much snow, better summer. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Either way, winters are going to suck. So that's just a real quick overview of the climate of the contiguous U.S. And of course, there are a lot more details and nuances than that, but I just wanted to go over some of the basics. And wherever you're going to live in the country, you're going to have to put up with some kind of crappy weather at some point or another. I mean, with the exception of the coastal areas of Southern California, I mean, it's going to be horrible at some point in the year. So it comes down to what you are willing to put up with. Big snow, heavy winds, hot, humid summers, high temperatures in the desert, lots of rain during the winter, severe thunderstorms, hurricanes, whatever you're going to able to tolerate. You have to tolerate something. So,
and you've got all of it there.
If you live in LA, it's always nice, but everything else there sucks. So, but in the southeast where I live, my biggest complaint is that it's rarely nice. I mean, you have maybe a month of nice weather in the spring, maybe a month of nice weather in the fall. The rest of the year is not nice at all. So I don't know. I think the climate again is very important. It affects every day of your life, affects your lifestyle, affects what you're going to do. So, I just think it's really important to understand the climate of the U.S.
And he said right at the very beginning as well, it affects conversation.
And why different places have different climate than others. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know you approve. And if you're interested in stuff like this, subscribe to this channel because I'm posting stuff about U.S. geography, road tripping, just kind of nerdy travel stuff too. So yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King signing out.
Right, let me know if there's any if there's other stuff that you like me checking out. Seems like a nice guy. Yeah, to me that was like a brush up on what I learnt at primary school. We forget most things from school by the time we get to a certain age, don't we? Yeah, definitely learnt a new thing. Contiguous. Never heard of that. It makes sense now when you think of contig. But what was I going to say? Yeah, weather is both simultaneously simple and complicated, isn't it? It's geography, and I don't mean just geography and where things are. I mean literally the, what's that called, the landscape and everything. Yeah, so obviously you got valleys and mountains and all that sort of stuff, but I like his analogy of the weather for it not all being mixed up. But yeah, I enjoyed that. Yeah, you get the Gulf as well. Right, if you guys enjoyed that, give us a thumbs up if you want to. Put stuff in the comments for me to read and react to, and let me know if there's any more of this stuff you want me to check out. Right, enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye. Bye-bye.